Welcome to the Kissing Spine podcast. How nice of you to join. In this podcast, I discuss several topics around kissing spine, like what kissing spine is, the different medical treatments, the function of different body parts, functional and dysfunctional training techniques, saddle fit, and a whole lot more. All put together to help you support your horse with a kissing spine. I wish you a lot of fun listening, and if you like this podcast, make sure to become a subscriber so you won't miss any of my episodes. Welcome back to a new episode of the Kissing Spine podcast. We're at episode number 6. Can a horse overcome kissing spine, and is sports forever out of the question? In the previous episode, I discussed the causes of kissing spine, mainly breeding, training, and bad saddle fit. So in basics, it's fairly simple. If you can work the kissing spine into the horse, you can also work it out. And the earlier it's found, the easier the rehab is going to be. You change your training to something more sustainable with the right hind leg and back engagement. Make sure your tack is fitting properly, and then all what you need is time. Time for your horse to develop the right muscle, time to regain mobility. And the younger the horse is, obviously, the easier it will be to influence its conformation in the growing period by training them in such a way that the back is up. So when it comes to the more talented horses where breeding is also an influence in the cause, we need to keep two things in mind. 1, these horses are started fairly young. Like if you look at Western horses, at reining horses, but also at race horses, these horses are being started between 2.5 and 3 years old. Well, now starting young doesn't have to be an issue, but intensity and correctness of the work is. So if you have a horse with a natural talent, so to say, to get kissing spine, like thoroughbreds and quarter horses, starting young can be an advantage when it comes to influence its conformation. But then the kind of training is very important. Starting such young horses in hand to explain how to use the body sustainably, for example, starting in small steps, giving the body and mind the time to grow and evolve in the training, could be really a good thing. Starting these horses up at 3.5 under saddle with a decent foundation in the groundwork for 6 months, that could really make all the difference in the world. But if you start these horses at 2.5, 3, pretty much straight away under saddle, and you ride them hollow all the time, so the back is down, the hind legs are not engaged, well, then you're setting yourself up for a lot of problems. Now, the whole thing with racing, but also with quarter horses, that the big bucks are pretty much made in the younger years. So they pretty much take everything out of these horses in young ages. And like the futurities in reining, for example, is the place where all the money is made. If you look at the World Cup for young dressage horses, that's where all the money is made. So these are all 4, 5, 6-year-olds. If you look at racing, same ages. So, because people want to buy young horses that have talent. And that's where the big bucks are made for young horses. So from an economical aspect, you want to invest as much in these horses and then, sell them for good money, and then you want to move on to your next horse. That's just how it is. It's a commercial thing. But that doesn't mean that these horses cannot be started up differently. Maybe it will take 6 months longer, and it can make all the difference in the world for these horses. So this is something that we can consider doing, and even their performance will be higher because a horse that's moving correctly through the body, it will be able to perform better. So with race horses, these horses are able to go faster, more comfortable and more fast. So, and longer because they're trained sustainably. So it's just, an idea that one could think about. So with breeds where the back is bred shorter and shorter to increase flexibility, so they're more athletic mostly, these horses still have a lot of vertebrae in a short space. It's not that these horses are bred with less vertebrae. The back is just bred shorter. And regardless the work that you're doing, these spines are not going to get longer. It's not, that's not going to happen. So saddle fit and correct training can make all the difference between these horses staying good and these horses getting back problems. And this is very much a today's subject since the breeding over the last years have changed. Training like we did 10 years ago is much less applicable to these type of horses without them getting into trouble due to the changes made in that breeding. by making the back shorter. So what was thought to be a great change now comes with complications, and riders are not really getting away anymore as easily with upside down riding, since horses will get into physical problems more easily. This all being said, what's worked into the horse can be worked out of the horse. With training, when needed, you can combine this with some medical support. A lot can be accomplished. I've seen plenty 15-year-olds or even older where the withers have gone up with more than an inch due to training. And this can only happen if the spine is coming up in the training. And when the spine comes up, more space will be created between the dorsals of the vertebrae. So where the dorsals are touching, where the spine is touching, you can actually start to open that up with training when the back is up. So the conformation of these horses have changed even though they were past the growing stage. So a lot of people think that you can only influence until the age of 8, but this in practice turns out not to be true, because but many rehab trainers have seen horses develop changes in the conformation after the age of 15. Actually, with Pura, she was 18, between the age of 18 and 19, where the withers came up with even half an inch. So that's quite a bit. So it's the same with adults when they're not sitting straight. If you're constantly sitting slouched on the couch, in the end, when you develop, like when you get older, you will see that the back of these people will change over the years. So change is possible even out of the growing stage. So yes, a horse can overcome kissing spine. With training, a horse with severe kissing spine that's not a candidate for surgery, this horse can become a candidate with the right training. And horses with mild kissing spine can overcome the kissing spine just with training. You can do some medical treatments, but surgery is not really necessary in a lot of cases. So what I see a lot, that a horse that's been having kissing spine for a longer period of time also gets issues around the SI joint, the stifles, and the hocks. Especially the stifles tend to lose mobility rather quickly if the horse is not moving the legs thoroughly. So these joints are meant to rotate. These joints are meant to move. Like a hinge of a door, this needs to move. If it's not moving a lot, it's going to get rusty. Well, joints have that tendency as well. I've given the example of me breaking my arm quite often, explaining that a little bit more. And especially the stifles and the hind legs are joints that really need to move. So in the previous podcast, I discussed that bad training is also a kissing spine cause. But bad training doesn't just influence the spine. It happens that a horse develops stifle issues due to not working through the body, not coming through from behind, and the suspension not working properly. And from there, the backs get locked. And that locked back in the end results in kissing spine. But also horses that got the kissing spine first develop hind leg issues because the spine is not really allowing, the pain. Therefore, the horse starts to compensate, and then, it's going to keep his back hollow and move the back as less as possible, because that back moving is what's causing the pain. So as long as they keep that back stiff, the hind legs cannot really come through. So when that happens, hind leg issues appear. So in the more severe cases, not just the spine needs to be taken a thorough look at, but also the hind legs to begin with need to be checked to see if anything is causing issues that could block rehab training. I often get the question if horses with a kissing spine could never do a high level of sports again. And mainly because many trainers claim this. Sports trainers claim this. And they even advise people to get rid of kissing spine horses. But horses with a kissing spine could definitely go back to sports, even on a high level. But if this is possible really depends on the age of the horse, the severity of the kissing spine, and the willingness of the owners and trainers to work this horse in such a way that the spine can come up. And this means that you're going to work the horse correctly. And we've already figured out that working the horse correctly and developing them correctly is a job that takes time. It's not something that you just do in a couple of weeks. So prepping a horse 6 weeks before its first show, which is something that really happens, That's not really giving the horse time to develop through the body, to, teach them how to use the body correctly, and, to really gain the muscle strength that the horse needs to carry itself in self-carriage. And let's face it, a 17-year-old with almost a fused spine is less likely to go to high-level sports again compared to a 5-year-old that only has 1 or 2 touching vertebrae. So if you're wondering if your horse could ever do sports again, you really need to take a thorough look in assessing who your horse is. Like, what are we talking about? Age, breeding, so are they bred with a shorter back or not? Does your horse have other issues? And how severe is the kissing spine? And then, of course, how much time do I want to invest in this horse to become healthy again? If you want me to take a look at your horse's possibilities, feel free to reach out through email, the Facebook group, Facebook Messenger, or Instagram. The Facebook group is Kissing Spine Rehabilitation Training with SDJ Horse Training. And the Facebook page and Instagram are SDJ Horse Training as well. So you're more than free to just reach out free of charge, and I will take a look at your horse. I also have a mini course for $37. It's a 5-day drip course in which I'll take you through the whole startup of the rehab training of kissing spine. So if you want to take a thorough look at assessing your horse and what kind of training is needed, what your possibilities are of medical treatments and that kind of stuff, I have a course for that as well. So it's only $37. It's a tiny investment and a huge amount of information that you can use right in the beginning of your kissing spine journey. And maybe after that course you feel like, okay, this is way over my head. This is not the right horse for me. Well, many people have felt that way before you, but in some cases, it's a better idea to indeed sell the horse to someone who is willing to put in the time and work to help this horse recover first before, getting it ready for sports. So, long story short, yes, a horse can recover from a kissing spine. If the horse will recover really depends on multiple things, as I explained. But if you are wondering whether your horse is a candidate for recovery, also, again, free of charge, just reach out to me and I'm happy to take a look with you to see what your horse's future could look like. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about different degrees of kissing spine. And then, of course, we have the experience special with Jade. So I cannot wait for you to hear the next podcast. And hopefully you will be here again. I would like to thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you think that this podcast is interesting to someone else, please share it on social media so others can find it too. This way we can create more awareness about what the options are with a kissing spine horse. I would like to thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you think that this podcast is interesting to someone else, please share it on social media so others can find it too. This way we can create more awareness about what the options are with a kissing spine horse.